What's good, y'all? Juju back with another video for you. Make sure y'all like, share, comment, and subscribe. You feel me? Help this channel grow so we can reach the people it needs to. If you have any video suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Or if you have any personal questions you want to hit me up about, add me on my socials. I'll leave them all in the description. So what I want to talk to y'all today about is mastering your shadow self and its importance. Feel me? The reason I want to bring y'all this video is because recently I have been doing a lot of personal shadow work, you feel me? I've really been digging into myself and realizing past traumas, past conflicts that I thought I had dealt with. And I'm really just going over them in my mind, you feel me? And the thing I've started to realize is I've been running on a thought process. I've been running on certain things that aren't helping me and making me grow into my best version. And I've been trying to get myself out of it recently, you feel me? So, shadow, first thing I want to tell y'all about what your shadow is, you feel me? If y'all have ever watched Naruto before, if y'all remember that scene where him and Killer Bee were training, you feel me? And when he went in the waterfall and meditated, he saw his shadow self. He saw that other person. He saw that version of himself that was evil, that person of himself that was negative, you feel me? That's the part that's basically what your shadow is. Your shadow is that part of you that is thinking negatively sometimes, that is run on your negative emotions, that is run on certain traumas and conflicts that you've been dealing with, you feel me? But the thing about the shadow is because it is negative, a lot of us tend to just shy away from it. You feel me? A lot of us just don't want to deal with that nigga at all and just act like he don't exist. But there is a shadow within every single one of us, and it has to be dealt with if you really want to get to your best version. You feel me? So when it comes to mastering your shadow, right? First thing you gotta do is you gotta figure it out. You gotta figure out what your shadow is. You gotta figure out who your shadow is. You feel me? Start to understand that your negative thoughts don't only like the way you act on a daily basis doesn't stem from nowhere. You feel me? We don't change every day. We have certain thoughts that we run in our mental that we act and judge ourselves off of. This regularly comes from when we're from ages 0 to 7, you feel me? So if you've had any childhood traumas, if you've had any negative experiences with your parents, with whatever, you feel me? That's what tends to be in our shadow a lot. And if we don't judge our shadow, if we don't confront our shadow, if we don't talk to him, if you don't really get to understand who he is or it is or she is, you feel me? If you don't get to know that side of yourself, what's gonna end up happening is consciously you may be thinking one type of way, but subconsciously and unconsciously your shadow is gonna be fucking all your blessings up. You feel me? So if you've been putting in a lot of work recently, you've been changing how you think, yeah, you're not seeing any of the results, it's because you haven't dealt with your shadow self. You feel me? It's because you haven't really faced those traumas. You haven't faced those negative emotions about yourself that were very impactful on you, that have been running you up until this point. You feel me? You haven't faced them and accepted them and let them go yet. So what your shadow self is doing now is, even though you are really bettering your life, it's subconsciously and unconsciously, you are still attached to it because what you haven't let go of it yet. You feel me? So since you are attached to the shadow self so much, whether you know it or not, it's blocking your blessings. It's creating resistance to those blessings that you truly have because you haven't dealt with it yet. You've neglected it. And those negative thoughts that you used to run on, those traumas that you haven't dealt with, that inner child still isn't healed yet. So what it's going to end up doing is it's going to end up blocking you from receiving everything that you feel like you should have received already. So in order to really start to confront it, in order to really start mastering your shadow self, you have to take time out of on your own, you feel me? You have to really sit down and think, what am I thinking on a daily basis that makes me act a certain way? You feel me? What is making me feel like this? What is making me mad? Really start to understand why certain things make you feel a certain way. You feel me? Because behind every emotion that we feel towards a certain thing, there is a story that we're telling. There is a story, excuse me. There is a story that we're telling ourselves, whether you know it or not, positive or negative. You feel me? So, let me go back to this. In Naruto, right? The story he had been telling himself is that the people in the village don't like you. You are an outcast. People treated you horribly. You feel me? And he realized that those thoughts were holding him back from reaching his true Nine Tails cloak form. You feel me? So what he had to end up doing is he had to confront that shadow self. He had to end up fucking that nigga up. He had to say, you know what? I'm not you no more. You feel me? Now I understand who you are. I understand. I love you. He had to really put love towards that shadow self of himself. You feel me? And when he did that, what ended up happening was when he got out of that meditational state where he was facing his shadow self, when he really beat and detached from those thoughts from himself. If y'all watch the show, you know that nigga came out a different breed. You feel me? That nigga came out with his Nine Tails cloak and he was more powerful than ever. And a lot of things, that's something else I want to tap on. A lot of these shows have true messages in them. And what that was telling you is that when you truly face that shadow self, when you really get in that bag, when you really start to detach from those thoughts that your shadow self has, that is when you become your best version. That is when you become your strongest self. So in order to do that, you have to first accept that you have a shadow. You have to accept the thoughts that it has. You have to realize that these are things that happen. And realize that those thoughts are what helped me get here. If I never had those fucked up thoughts, if none of those events ever happened to me, I wouldn't be in a place now where I am trying to better my life. Understand that the universe has you where you are right now for a specific purpose. And everything in your life has a purpose that can be learned from in order to become your greatest version. You feel me? So the reason that you have been stagnant, the reason that you haven't been manifesting all these blessings, and the reason that you have been feeling sad is because the universe is trying to make you confront that shadow self of you. You feel me? So understand that you have to accept everything that has happened, because now that you know this information, now that you understand certain things that happen in your life and the way it's affected you, and how all those things, how the collective of all that shit has gotten you to where you are right now, now is where you can get to healing. You feel me? Start to go back into those moments. Start to really think of all those events and how they affected you. And release attachment from those stories. You feel me? Start to detach yourself from the negative outcome of those stories. Start to detach from the negative association that you have with those stories of yourself. You feel me? Start to realize that those stories that I'm telling myself aren't serving me anymore. See, before, what happened was those stories were used, those stories started to become infused into your subconscious mind, and that is who you became. Because realize this, when you go through something traumatic, when you go through something negative, and you aren't aware of your spirituality, what happens is your ego is here. Your ego is here to protect you at all costs. Your ego is that fight or flight instinct. Your ego just wants you to be safe. You feel me? And that's why when you are trying to embark on a new journey, sometimes you feel nervous. That's where you get that nervous energy from, because your ego doesn't like to get uncomfortable. So when you haven't faced your shadow self becomes your ego. Damn, that's a bar. Let me say that again. Your shadow self becomes your ego. Your mind may be on a higher level. Your mind may be on a spiritual level. But since you haven't dealt with that shadow self, your shadow self becomes your ego. So those certain events that happen to you, those certain things that you haven't done yet, those borders that you haven't crossed yet, your ego isn't going to want to travel them. You feel me? Because like I said, your ego just wants you to stay safe. Your ego hates being uncomfortable. So you have to force yourself, you have to really take time for yourself and start detaching from these stories that you've told yourself, and realize that I don't view these things in a negative light, because without all these stories, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. Start to say that to yourself. Start to forgive yourself for being in that place. Start to forgive yourself for not understanding, not really understanding what was happening in that moment. Start to forgive yourself for how you reacted in that certain moment. Because realize that in the present moment, we're like, everybody is just doing what they know. You feel me? And at the time, you didn't know all this knowledge that you know now. So forgive yourself for not knowing. You feel me? Because you didn't know. That's it. You didn't know. So start to do that. You feel me? And what's gonna end up happening is when you really start to confront your shadow self, you may start to feel this emotional baggage. You may have to cry. You feel me? You may have to take time for yourself. You may want to be alone. You may be depressed. You may be sad for a little bit. But this is only because now you are releasing all that energy that you had stored up within you. You feel me? Now that you are becoming conscious of these stories and these emotions that you've held on to, this baggage that you've held on to for years, now you're able to release it. You're able to drop it. Imagine like you had a fat ass book bag on your bag, you feel me? And you've had on that backpack for so long. You've had on that backpack for so long that you started to identify it as you. And what you never even noticed that it's been weighing you down. Now what you're doing is when you're facing your shadow self, think of it as realizing that you actually have a backpack on. And now you're starting to drop it. You're starting to drop all that weight that was off your shoulders. You're starting to release all that weight. And in the analogy I created it, you can imagine it as you dropping the backpack. But what's gonna end up happening is the dropping of the backpack is you releasing your emotions. So you may cry, you may feel bad. That's what that is. It's you getting rid of all that tension that was stored up within you. And once you get through that phase, that is when you start to really understand that your inner world is creating your outer world. That is when you start to see your outer world really start to change, when you have really accepted that everything that has happened to me, when you start to accept that everything that has happened to me was to make me my best version. And you start to integrate with that shadow self. You start to heal and forgive that shadow self, you feel me? That's when you really step into your power. You get your nine tails clothed, you feel me? So, is there anything else I want to talk to y'all about? Nah, that's really it. You feel me? Start to face that shadow self. Start to take time out for yourself to really think back on your childhood and think back on certain events that may have been affecting you in a way that you didn't know. Start to notice how you react to certain things. Your triggers are also the place where you can grow. You feel me? So start to realize that what makes you mad is where you have to focus your energy on in order to stop making you mad. You feel me? So yeah, man, that's all I got for y'all right now. I gotta go put in some work for myself. If y'all like the video, make sure y'all give it a like, share, subscribe, help this channel grow, you feel me? Yeah, man, that's really all I got for y'all, man. GVO Juju signing out.